Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to picture this really sweeping, cinematic scene with me. It's just before dawn in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. The ancient Ghats are totally quiet, and the very first light of the sun is just starting to reflect off the Ganges River. We're stepping into this incredible world defined by narrow alleys, temple courtyards, and the faint, just beautiful sound of Indian classical music. Today, we're exploring the absolutely fascinating, highly meticulous world of one of India's last master bamboo flute makers. We're going to look closely at exactly how a traditional bansuri is crafted completely from scratch. We'll be breaking down those technical steps that make these handcrafted instruments so vital for students of Indian classical music.
A flute is not merely made, it is patiently discovered within the bamboo. This profound philosophy belongs to an 80-year-old master artisan. For over 60 years, he's been handcrafting traditional bamboo flutes for classical musicians and students across the entire country. Really think about that level of dedication for a second. This isn't about mere manufacturing, right? It's a true process of discovery. He approaches every single piece of bamboo not as just some raw material to be forced into a shape, but as an actual instrument that's just waiting to be revealed.
All right, so let's get into section 1, the last flute maker. Now, what's really interesting about this is the core conflict our master artisan is facing today. It's handcrafted bamboo flutes versus factory-made instruments. We aren't just talking about a guy making instruments in his shop. We're talking about the survival of a centuries-old musical craft. Today, mass-produced, factory-made instruments have become incredibly common. They are everywhere. But if you talk to this artisan, he remembers a time when literally every single music teacher insisted on handcrafted flutes for their students. Why? Well, because each handcrafted instrument possesses its own absolutely unique voice. For students of classical music, having an instrument with a distinct, resonant soul is essential. And honestly, it's just something a factory simply cannot replicate. Let's walk through the actual rhythm of the artisan's day. His work begins long before the rest of the city even wakes up. Before sunrise, he's already out there walking through the bamboo groves. Then, as daytime hits, while the bustling markets of Varanasi are coming alive outside, he retreats right into the peaceful focus of his workshop for construction. And finally, as sunset approaches, the day concludes not with him just packing up his tools, but with the playing of a final melody on a newly finished flute. It's this really beautiful, continuous cycle of nature, craft, and music. Which brings us to section 2, sourcing and seasoning bamboo. Long before a student ever breathes into the mouthpiece, the life of the flute has already been completely shaped by the elements. If you're a student of Indian classical music watching this, these are the absolutely crucial initial preparation steps that dictate the quality of your instrument. The journey begins right in the grove. Step 1 is that morning walk through the bamboo groves. Step 2 is the incredibly careful selection of mature bamboo pieces, and this requires a master's eye to know exactly which stalks have the right density and diameter. And finally, step 3, seasoning each piece naturally. So as you can see, the instrument's journey begins long before a tool is ever touched to wood.
This right here is the absolute foundation of sound. It totally relies on mature bamboo that is naturally seasoned to perfection. You can almost imagine those ultra-realistic textures of the bamboo grain. Allowing the bamboo to dry and season naturally, rather than just rushing the whole thing in a kiln, ensures that the wood retains the perfect resonance. When a classical musician eventually plays this flute, the rich, warm tone they produce relies entirely on the patience exercised during this very specific, very slow seasoning phase.
Let's move on to section 3, shaping and tuning. Okay, we're transitioning now from those big macro concepts of sourcing down to the extreme sensory micro details of construction inside the workshop. This is where the magic literally happens. If you're a student learning to play, let's break down the precise alchemy of how your instrument is actually crafted. First, every section is measured, but definitely not with digital calipers. He uses handmade tools. Second, the finger holes are drilled using heated metal rods. Third, the surface is sanded until it's perfectly smooth to the touch. And fourth, and honestly perhaps most importantly, every single flute is tuned entirely by ear. The slow, super deliberate pacing required for these technical steps is exactly why handcrafted flutes maintain that unique voice we were talking about earlier. Let's zoom in on that drilling for a second because it's pretty incredible. In this context, it's the precise process of using glowing embers and heated metal rods to literally burn the finger holes into the bamboo. Just imagine the visual here. The warm, golden hour lighting of the workshop catching the smoke, the glowing embers, the wood shavings gently falling to the floor as the heated rod melts perfectly through that dense bamboo grain. It is a highly specialized, totally tactile process that actually seals the wood as it creates the hole, ensuring the acoustics are perfectly preserved for the musician. This really brilliantly illustrates the overall atmosphere of the workshop. The handmade measuring tools, those glowing embers, the meticulous sanding. You can almost see a close-up of the artisan's weathered hands performing these tasks with literally decades of built-in muscle memory. And then there's the tuning by ear. The quiet ambience of the room is only broken by birdsong, some distant temple bells, and the artisan's fingers carefully, patiently testing the notes. He fills the room with soft, gentle Bansuri melodies just to ensure the tuning is absolutely flawless before it ever reaches a student's hands. And that leads us perfectly to our final section, a voice that outlives. So, the day is winding down, the precise sanding is done, the ear tuning is completely finished, and sunset is quickly approaching over the Ganges. It's time for the master artisan to place the final, finished flute on a wooden shelf, and as he plays one last gentle melody at sunset, the 80-year-old artisan smiles quietly and says, "People think I made flutes, but all my life I gave breath a voice that could outlive me." I mean, wow, it perfectly summarizes a 60-year legacy. He isn't just manufacturing a wooden tube, right? He is crafting an enduring vessel for human expression. He is creating a voice that will carry on through generations of classical music students long, long after he is gone. So it really leaves us asking, in a world of mass-produced objects, what is the true value of a handcrafted voice that can outlive its maker? It's a profound thought to sit with. As factory-made instruments become the norm everywhere, the survival of Indian classical music's very soul relies on the preservation of these traditional techniques and the incredible artisans who dedicate their entire lives to them. I really hope this look into the careful selection, the burning of the bamboo, and the meticulous tuning by ear has given you a whole new appreciation for the instrument. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep exploring the incredible world around you.